Nathan Cole was 37 years old, worked as a senior claims investigator for a regional insurance company, and lived in the peaceful town of Willow Creek with a routine that revolved around his two children above everything else. Every Wednesday evening and every alternate weekend, he picked up 11-year-old Owen and an 8-year-old Sophie without fail, believing that no promotion, no overtime, and no family obligation would ever matter more than keeping promises to his children. To everyone around him, Nathan appeared successful because he paid his bills on time, maintained an excellent credit history, and drove an older SUV that he had restored himself over several years of weekend work. What no one noticed was that he had spent nearly half of his life quietly solving other people's financial disasters, convincing himself that being dependable was the same as being loved, even as the weight slowly drained every bit of joy from his life. Nathan's younger brother, Mason, had always lived differently, chasing exciting ideas that rarely lasted while relying on their parents to excuse every mistake he made along the way. Whenever Mason needed money for unpaid rent, overdue loans, unexpected repairs, or another business plan that promised quick success, their parents insisted he only needed a little support, and somehow Nathan was always expected to provide it without asking a single question. Throughout the years, Nathan covered emergencies that never truly belonged to him, lending thousands of dollars for unpaid taxes, utility bills, moving expenses, medical costs, and forgotten credit card payments that were never returned despite countless promises. His former wife, Emily, often warned him that he treated his relatives like responsibilities instead of family, explaining that every sacrifice pushed the people who genuinely loved him further into the background until their marriage quietly fell apart. After the divorce, Nathan and Emily remained respectful co-parents, determined to give Owen and Sophie a peaceful childhood despite living in separate homes. But his relatives never accepted any responsibility for the strain they had placed on his life. Just days before his father's birthday celebration at an expensive countryside lodge, Nathan received another cheerful phone call from his mother asking him to attend because the evening was meant to bring the whole family together, completely unaware that the gathering would become the moment that changed his life forever. Nathan arrived at the countryside lodge a few minutes early with Owen and Sophie, while Emily met them there so the children could enjoy dinner with both parents before returning home later that evening. The dining hall glowed beneath elegant chandeliers. Soft piano music drifted through the room, and every polished table reflected the kind of luxury that made Nathan quietly calculate every price before opening the menu. His parents greeted everyone warmly, but the attention quickly shifted toward Mason and his wife, Vanessa, who entered laughing loudly and immediately began ordering expensive appetizers before anyone else had even chosen a drink. Nathan noticed that neither of them glanced at the prices while his father proudly encouraged them to enjoy everything because birthdays were meant to be celebrated without worrying about money. Owen politely asked whether he could order grilled chicken with mashed potatoes, while little Sophie smiled hopefully after spotting a simple bowl of creamy pasta on the children's menu that she had been reading since they sat down. Before Nathan could answer, Vanessa casually requested 2 gourmet desserts to be packed for her children who had stayed home with a babysitter, explaining that they deserved a special treat even though they were not attending the celebration. Nathan forced a small smile and tried to ignore the uncomfortable feeling growing inside him, but it became impossible when his father looked toward Owen and Sophie with an amused grin and suggested they could eat something at home because restaurant food was too expensive for children anyway. Mason laughed without hesitation, adding that kids rarely appreciated fine dining and that Nathan should save his money instead of wasting it on meals they probably would not even remember. The conversation immediately returned to cheerful birthday stories as though nothing unusual had happened. Yet Nathan could not stop watching his children quietly lower their eyes toward the table instead of speaking. Emily gently squeezed Sophie's hand beneath the table without saying a word, while Nathan felt years of silent sacrifices gathering inside him until he realized that this evening was becoming about far more than a simple family dinner. Nathan slowly placed his menu on the table and stood up with a calm expression that surprised even him, while the cheerful conversations around the table faded into complete silence as every pair of eyes turned toward him. The waiter approached politely to ask whether everything was satisfactory, and Nathan answered in a steady voice, "Yes, thank you, but I'd appreciate it if you could prepare separate bills for each household because I'll only be paying for myself and my children tonight." A stunned silence spread across the table before Mason let out a short laugh, convinced his brother was making another harmless joke that would disappear within seconds. Their father smiled confidently and pushed the dinner menu aside, telling Nathan to stop creating unnecessary drama because everyone already knew he would take care of the bill just as he always had. But Nathan calmly replied that those days were over. His mother leaned forward with a worried smile and quietly begged him not to spoil the celebration, reminding him that families should never argue over money during birthdays or special occasions. Nathan respectfully answered that he was not arguing about money at all, explaining that he was simply deciding how to spend his own earnings, while Emily remained silent beside the children, offering only a reassuring smile that silently told him he was doing the right thing. Mason slid the leather bill folder toward Nathan without even opening it and casually suggested that he could settle the payment first before requesting everyone's share later, exactly as he had done countless times before. Nathan gently pushed the folder back across the table and answered with one clear word, "No," before turning to the waiter and asking him to add one grilled chicken meal and one children's pasta to his family's bill because Owen and Sophie deserved to enjoy dinner just like everyone else. Their father frowned deeply and accused Nathan of embarrassing the entire family over something so small, but Nathan calmly looked at his children before meeting his father's eyes again. "This isn't about one dinner," he said quietly. "It's about years of expecting me to carry responsibilities that were never mine. And from today forward, my first responsibility will always be the two children sitting beside me." The waiter quietly collected the menus and returned a few minutes later with separate receipts, handling the uncomfortable situation with the professionalism of someone who had witnessed similar family conflicts before. Nathan thanked him politely, signed his own bill without hesitation, and smiled as Owen and Sophie happily enjoyed their meals, while the rest of the table sat in tense silence, struggling to accept that he had not changed his mind. His father slowly pushed his untouched receipt across the table and gave Nathan one final chance to do the right thing, insisting that paying for family was a son's responsibility and that refusing now showed a shocking lack of respect. Nathan calmly slid the receipt back without even looking at the amount and replied, "Respect is earned through kindness, not demanded through guilt, and my children will never grow up believing they deserve less than anyone else at this table." His mother wiped away a tear and accused him of ruining what should have been one of the happiest evenings of the year, while Mason complained that Nathan had embarrassed everyone in front of strangers over a simple restaurant bill. Nathan answered without raising his voice, explaining that the dinner had only exposed a pattern that had existed for years, because every celebration somehow ended with him paying the price, while everyone else acted as though it was perfectly normal. Emily quietly helped Sophie put on her coat, while Owen stood beside his father with quiet pride, sensing that something important had just changed, even if he could not fully understand it. Before leaving, Nathan wished his father a sincere happy birthday, told his mother he hoped they would all find a healthier way to treat one another in the future, and walked out with his children into the cool evening air, feeling lighter than he had in many years. During the drive home, Sophie softly asked whether Grandpa was angry because they had ordered dinner, and Nathan glanced at his children through the rearview mirror before answering with a gentle smile. "Sometimes people become upset when someone stops accepting unfair treatment," he said. "But you should always remember that kindness never means allowing others to take advantage of you, and tonight we simply chose to respect ourselves." The following morning, Nathan's phone lit up with missed calls, angry messages, and long voice notes accusing him of humiliating the family during his father's birthday dinner. Instead of answering immediately, he made breakfast with Owen and Sophie, laughing as flour covered the kitchen counter, because for the first time in years he refused to let someone else's anger steal a peaceful morning with his children. Around noon, his mother finally reached him and begged him to apologize before the situation became worse. Nathan listened quietly until she finished, then replied, "I didn't insult anyone. I simply paid for my own family's meal, and I'm not apologizing for putting my children first." Only an hour later, Mason sent a lengthy message about loyalty and family values before ending it with a request for money to cover an overdue car payment. Nathan stared at the screen for several seconds before replying with only 3 words, "I can't help," then placed the phone face down without waiting for another argument. That evening, another unexpected call arrived from a towing company informing Nathan that Mason had listed him as the emergency financial contact for an unpaid vehicle release. Nathan calmly explained that he had never agreed to accept responsibility for that account and politely declined to authorize any payment, realizing how automatically everyone expected him to rescue situations he had never created. 2 weeks later, Nathan's grandmother invited him and the children to spend the afternoon at her small countryside home, where fresh bread filled the kitchen and laughter replaced tension. After quietly listening to everything, she smiled gently and said, "The strongest people aren't the ones who carry everyone's burdens forever. Nathan, they're the ones who know which burdens truly belong to them." And for the first time since the birthday dinner, he felt completely certain that he had made the right choice. Nearly 3 weeks passed after the birthday dinner, and although Nathan's home had become quieter, his phone had not. Every few days, another message arrived from a different relative reminding him that family should always forgive, yet somehow every conversation ended with someone asking for a favor, a loan, or another sacrifice, as if nothing had changed. One Tuesday afternoon, Nathan received an unexpected phone call from a local towing company explaining that Mason's SUV had been impounded and that Nathan was listed as the emergency financial contact. The manager politely asked whether he would be covering the outstanding charges, but Nathan calmly replied that he had never agreed to guarantee the account and asked them to remove his name from their records immediately. That same evening, his father appeared outside Nathan's apartment without warning and knocked firmly on the front door. Nathan stepped outside alone while Owen and Sophie watched through the living room window, and after a long silence, his father said, "You've changed," to which Nathan answered, "No, Dad, I finally stopped pretending everything was fine." His father insisted that Nathan's refusal to help was tearing the family apart, arguing that older sons were supposed to carry everyone else when times became difficult. Nathan looked him in the eyes and quietly replied, "Supporting family is a choice, not a lifetime contract, and I won't teach my children that love means accepting endless disrespect." After several moments of silence, his father turned away without another word and slowly walked back to his truck. Nathan watched him drive away with sadness instead of anger, realizing that for the first time in his life, he had protected his own peace without shouting, arguing, or trying to convince anyone that he was right. A few days later, Nathan received a phone call that surprised him more than any argument had. It was his grandmother, Eleanor, who warmly invited him, Owen, and Sophie to spend the weekend at her farmhouse, saying she had heard enough family gossip to know there were two sides to every story and wanted to hear his before making any judgment. After listening quietly, Eleanor smiled and placed a gentle hand on Nathan's shoulder. "Your grandfather was once treated the same way," she said softly. "And the day he stopped carrying everyone else's burdens was the day he finally found peace. Never confuse kindness with surrender, because the people who truly love you will never demand that you destroy yourself to make their lives easier." On the drive home, Owen broke the silence by asking whether they would still visit Grandpa every Sunday like they used to. Nathan answered honestly, explaining that they would gladly return one day if everyone could treat each other with respect, because forgiveness was important, but healthy relationships required effort from both sides instead of only one. The months that followed were unlike anything Nathan had experienced in years. His savings slowly grew. Weekends became filled with soccer games, school concerts, movie nights, and camping trips, while the constant pressure to solve everyone else's problems quietly disappeared as relatives realized he would no longer rescue them from every consequence of their choices. One evening, Sophie proudly hung a family photo on the living room wall showing herself, Owen, and Nathan laughing beside a quiet lake during their first vacation in years. Looking at that picture, Nathan understood that the greatest gift he could give his children was not endless financial support for other people, but the example that self-respect, healthy boundaries, and genuine love always belong at the same table. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.